Hi, welcome to the HR Psych Podcast. This is our first episode, so I figured I'd get us started with the 8 things that I wish that I knew when I first started in human resources. Had I known even one of these things, I would have saved myself so much heartache and so many sleepless nights in the beginning of my career. Number 1, your network. So right now you might be starting out in your career. Maybe you're just thinking about getting into human resources, or you've been doing it for a little while, but it's in a small company and it's a department of one, and HR is also the office manager, also the party planner, also a little bit of finance, and yada, yada, yada. So maybe you don't have a lot of professionals around you that do what you do. That is totally fine. So HR is one of those things that we make friends for a living, so it's really easy to gain a network of people, especially nowadays. Like, you can literally find a group of HR professionals, employment attorneys, finance professionals, business professionals, you name it, anybody who knows anything about anything on places like TikTok, on YouTube. I cannot tell you the amount of people since the pandemic started that I've connected with through social media, that we are now each other's network and we bounce ideas off of each other. And we found each other because of a silly joke that was posted on TikTok about HR. There's no right way to build your network, but it's super important that you have one, even if it's just a couple of people. So why is this important? There's going to be an obscure law one day that gets passed, or an executive order that you have to interpret and apply to your company. You're probably not an employment attorney. You're probably not a person who studied law. I'm not. I know that I needed to rely on those attorneys. I know that I needed to rely on my network of people to say, hey, this is how I'm interpreting this. I don't think it applies to my company, or I think I do, and this is what I got to do. What do you think here? Am I right? Am I going down the right path? I don't want to get in trouble. I don't want to get my company in trouble. And you just bounce ideas off of each other. Employment attorneys are vital to a network. So employment attorneys, it's kind of like finding a psychiatrist. You have to find one that you mesh with. I've known a couple throughout my career. I have 2 in my network right now that are the best human beings that I have ever worked with. They're just kind, and they dumb things down for me and make it really easy for me to interpret whatever law it is that I'm talking through. Now, keep in mind, employment attorneys are a little special, which is why I'm spending a little bit of time on them. Depending on what you're asking them, depending on what you're having them do for you, that network connection might also cost you money. So I have one that I just kind of, hey, real quick question. They answer my question. They didn't charge me for it. And then I have another one that this is a policy that I'm putting through based off of this law or based off of this executive order. Can you read through this for me? And they might charge me a fee for that particular thing. I would recommend that you find 2 different kinds of attorneys, someone who does local and someone who does federal. I have yet to come across someone who will do both that doesn't charge a ton of money. So keep that in mind. And your company has to be okay with you having this person as a person in your pocket if they are going to charge you some money. The other people that you want to know, finance professionals. If you are a person that is in charge of any kind of payroll, something is going to come along like a payroll deduction or a child support order or some other tax garnishment, and you might have a little bit of trouble or need a little bit of assistance getting that done. A little kind of aside to that, if your company is working with Paychex for payroll processing or ADP, not sponsored in any way, but those 2 particular payroll processors do actually have in-house counsel and experts. Sometimes they'll help you through something for free. So keep that in mind as well. The other people that I have in my network, I have people that I went to school with. I have professors. I have people that I vent to, psychologists, psychiatrists, kind of like a good sprinkling of everything, so that if I have an investigation that I need to do and I just need to talk through it with someone, I can call someone. Or if something crappy happened at work, because let's face it, we have to deal with some bad stuff sometimes, I have a person that I can call and vent to. We're going to spend a little bit more time on that particular topic here in a little bit. But your network is super important to what you do. And if you're listening to this, I am now part of your network. Reach out to me. I can help you answer questions. I can help you with employee issues, whatever it is that you need. I can't write a policy book for you, but I can probably help you find some templates and things like that. So welcome to my team. Number 2, read. Everyone hates when I tell them that, but it's so important. I know that nobody reads newspapers anymore. I get it. It's old-fashioned. However, there are podcasts, there are books online, there are YouTube videos like the one that you're watching and or listening to right now. You need to be a person that just ingests as much information as possible. You want to know what's going on in politics, not the things that are not employment law related, unless that's something that makes you happy, but the employment law changes, the changes to the Department of Labor, the changes to unemployment. You want to know about those trends and those issues. You want to know about people's retention problems, about the things that companies are doing well to retain their people. You want to know about your industry. So for me, I started in an industry that I genuinely believed in the beginning was just going to be like a temporary thing for me. And it turned out to be permanent because I loved it. So I spent a lot of time learning about my industry. I read business journals about my industry. I went to conferences about my industry that had nothing to do with human resources because I wanted to understand the ins and outs of my organization and the ins and outs of how they operate. How do they earn money? How do they spend money? What do they invest in? What's their moral compass? I wanted to know all of those things. So please be willing to read all of those things. And I don't want to get into politics here. I don't want to spend a lot of time on that particular thing because the actual side that you leaned on is irrelevant because human resources is not supposed to be public about that. However, you want to read everything. That means the things that you disagree with. That means the things that you agree with. You want to read it all because your employees are going to be from a million different walks of life and they're going to see and hear and be impacted by everything that's out there, not just the things that you agree and that you like. So sometimes that means that I have to set little times because I get a little passionate about things and I'm like, you know what? I'm going to read this thing from this news source and I know I'm probably going to disagree with it, but I need to know what's happening. So I'm going to read that for 20 minutes or I'm going to listen to this podcast for 20 minutes or whatever it is. If that's what you have to do to get through it, then that's totally fine. There's nothing wrong with that, but you still need to be open to it. Doesn't mean you have to change your opinion about things, but understand that human resources professionals, we do not take a side. We do not say, hey, I'm this political party or I'm this religion or I'm pro or anti. We don't do any of that. But it is our job to understand that because we have to understand the human element to all of it and what stressors our employees, our managers, our executives, what they're going through. Inflation, gas prices, tariffs on imports and exports, and all of that could impact your industry and your business. I know it impacted mine. I needed to understand that about my company. So I've learned a lot about things that I never thought I needed to know because I needed to be better at my job for the company, for the industry that I chose to stay in and the industry that ultimately I love. You're going to find your industry, you're going to find your niche, you're going to find where it is that you want to be, learn about whatever it is. And sometimes learning about it makes you say, you know what, this isn't for me. Let me go somewhere else. That's totally fine. You can reinvent yourself along the way. 2A. It doesn't deserve its own thing, but it does need to be talked about. So as you're learning, as you're reading, as you're watching and ingesting all of this information about human resources and how better to do your job, you also want to learn about the company. So I know I talked about it a little bit earlier, but when I say that, you might be in a business that's seasonal. Maybe you work for a company that does retail. Maybe you work for a manufacturing or distribution center or whatever the case is. And summertime, they're really busy. Wintertime, not so much, or vice versa. And they hire a lot, but they're temps and then they let the temps go. Maybe they have quarterly inventories, month-end close. There's a million things that can be operational that are on their calendar that maybe are not on the HR radar. Ask if they have an operating calendar. And if they don't have one, make one. So I know for the first couple of years when I was first starting out in a new company, they didn't have one, and it was driving me nuts because I couldn't keep up with what was going on. And I just said, you know what? I'll just make it. In that particular industry, they had month-end close, they had quarterly taxes that were due, they had quarterly inventories, they had a seasonal business that they would hire throughout the year and kind of come up and down with the amount of employees that were on board. I put all of that in a calendar, sent it to the leadership and said, did I miss anything? Is there anything else that's major that's going on at the locations, at the executive level that I need to know for this operating calendar? They actually ended up taking that and using it as a regular part of company business. But there were some things that I didn't know about that they even completely forgot that we added on there. So I planned my year based on that calendar. I'm not going to launch a whole bunch of policies and procedures that I need people to understand and be trained on and sign off on if they're in the middle of an inventory. If we are about to lay off half of our organization because it's a seasonal business and they were only here for a few months, I'm not going to do a lot of heavy on the employee things because that can be really stressful for people, even if they knew that they were only going to be with us for a couple of months. Sometimes there's some heartache that goes in that, especially if they know that this is a good company, and I refuse to work for a company that is not, which we'll get there in a minute. But understand your business. Ask questions. If you are in an organization that tells you not to ask questions and stay in your lane and you can't understand that side of the business because you're on this one, I'd run. Make sure that it's very clear. I just want to understand so that we can work together and work towards a common goal and not I'm here to take over. We'll spend another podcast in the future on tact and how to gain your seat at the table. But for now, just understand that there are companies that are healthy that won't put a roadblock in front of you if you do ask these questions. So as long as they understand that you're trying to be respectful of their time and make sure that you are respectful of what needs to be done for the organization, as well as the legal compliance stuff that you have to get done. All right, so this one I'm going to be just very clear. There are so many people in human resources that are just starting out or telling me that they want to get in it, and I ask them why, and they say, well, I like people. I'm very social, and I want to help people. That's wonderful. That's beautiful. Also naive. I'm so sorry to tell you that. But HR is so much more than just helping people. If you're anything like me in what I do for a living every single day, about 60, maybe even more % is behind the scenes. You're working on spreadsheets and policies and writing stuff. And then there's 10 to 15% where you're actually connected with employees and connected with people and getting to know them and doing all of those things. And then there's a chunk where you are teaching other people how to manage their teams, how to have difficult conversations, or you are the one having difficult conversations and writing people up and terminating them and doing investigations and doing all of those things. Human resources is not just the fun and the fluffy. Unless you are being hired as an event planner or something like that has a little bit of human resources in that job. Please be very aware of your own mental health in all of this. The greatest HR people that I've ever met, the ones that I look up to that I'm like, wow, I want to be like you when I grow up. They have this incredibly high amount of empathy. And I've seen where they struggle with that because they feel what that person is feeling. And I don't know if that's just a human resources thing that a lot of like empathetic people are drawn to this type of career. I know that I have a higher than average level of empathy, but I've had to, over the last decade, work on how much I let the bad part of this job, and not the bad part, the hard part. The part where we're having investigations for people that we like, the part where we're letting someone go that we know about their kids and grandkids and how excited they were about the next chapter of their life with, I don't know, maybe being empty nesters or sending a kid off to college or whatever it is. Like, you still have a job that you have to get done. And I know that sounds cold and heartless, but that's exactly why your mental health is important. If I feel like, you know what, I need a minute before I have this conversation, because I really want to make sure that I am, one, being professional, two, I'm capable of being the appropriate level of empathetic to the person that I'm speaking with, because even if they did something wrong, they deserve that. And three, that I don't put myself in a position where I am not in control as I need to be in a difficult discussion. I'll go for a walk before I have it. I will never put myself in a situation where I have back-to-back meetings, back-to-back difficult conversations, or any of that, because I know that I don't function well that way. I know that I need a little bit of breathing room in my head. I know that for me personally, I have to get myself moving. Before COVID, when I was in the office, I would do a lap around the building outside, kind of get some sunshine on my face, get my heart rate going. And that was a really easy way for me to kind of clear my head. Now that I am working remotely, it's same deal. If I have to have a difficult conversation, or if I'm working on something that's particularly heart heavy for me, I'll go for a walk around the block with the dogs. I'll go clean something. I have my incense burner behind me, and my essential oils and all that kind of stuff. That's the stuff that works for me. You have to find the thing that helps you detach from the difficult. It's okay to feel it. You're human. You're going to, but you don't want this to be something that impacts your ability to move forward from it, your ability to handle it professionally, your ability to make sure that you're being kind and patient with your family that's waiting for you at home. You have to have some way of detaching from the difficult. I would strongly encourage, and I know that this over the last couple of years has become more of a commonplace thing, but I would strongly encourage that you actually have a psychologist or a psychiatrist that you work with, that you talk through difficult situations with, or a person that you, outside of your company, view as senior to you, that you can vent to, that have like a safe space for you. That has become critically important for me. I believe in mental health, and I believe that healthy people help people. So if you really are in this to help others, make sure that you're helping yourself first. It's no different when you get on an airplane. They tell you if something happens, you put your mask on first, and then you help the person next to you. You have to do that for yourself. There are going to be times where this is going to be hard, where you're going to go home and need a margarita, or you're going to need to cry, or whatever it is, because you just let go of the employee that's been there for decades. You let go of the institution because they did something that violated a policy or procedure that there was no coming back from. Or someone passes away and you have to work with the family and help the family through that situation with insurance and all of that. You have to find a healthy common ground that puts you in a space where you can manage all of that and still be who you want to be at the end of the day. So we'll have a separate podcast on this particular topic and other tools and techniques and things that I recommend directly for human resources professionals. Unfortunately, there's not a lot of information that is particular to HR, but there's a lot that does apply to HR and the stressors that we have with what we choose to do. Number 4. So if any of you listening out there have worked for me before, I'm not going to call any of you out, but you've heard me say this before. My style of HR, the style that I've decided to develop is, I call it hippie HR. I've never Googled it before, so maybe someone out there, hippie HR means something else, but this is what it means to me. My style, my personal style of HR is to put the employee center. Now everybody's going to say, well, of course you do. That's what human resources does. Not necessarily. So before I launch a policy and procedure a change to something because of compliance, any of that kind of stuff. I think about, how does this impact the employees? How does this impact my organization? How do I bring those two pieces together? How do my employees learn? How do I teach this to them? What languages do I need to use? What wording do I need to use? Do I need to use visuals? Do I need to go out there and be personal with every employee and sit down with them individually and give them one-on-one time with whatever this thing is? Whatever that is, whatever the answer is that gets the employee to feel, you know what, I'm not just another person here. They care, and they're going to listen to me, and they're going to make sure that I understand what it is that we do here, and what this policy means to me, and what it means for my family. That is what hippie HR is for me. That's what all of that means for me. I'm sure that at some point, all of you have worked for companies that they put some policy or procedure through, and half of the employees don't understand what it means. Another half is looking at this like, this means that we're all getting a pay reduction, or we're not getting bonuses anymore, or they're not going to hire more help, so we're going to have to work 70-hour work weeks. Nobody talked to us, or blah, 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 blah. That's what I try to avoid with hippie HR. I have been, I don't want to call it lucky. I have been very selective, and I've been lucky enough to be able to be selective with the companies that I've chosen to work for as I've progressed in my career. I will not work for a company that won't allow for that mentality to be front and center. I don't want to change how a president thinks or is or any of that, but I do want to make sure that I work in a place that believes in diversity and inclusion and in people first. I know that hard decisions have to happen. Sometimes you have to do layoffs. Sometimes you have to put in a policy or procedure that is going to harm some employees, and there's no way around it. I know that that's a reality of what we do, but that should be a rare occasion and not the rule, in my eyes, with the brand that I've created. So what I will say is, when you're developing your brand, when you're developing your style, whatever that is, you need to make a decision on, are you going to be an innovator, or do you just want to make sure that you're maintaining the status quo and maintaining compliance? Either one is okay. I'm a little bit of a rule breaker. I'm not going to say necessarily. Again, if anybody's listening out there that has ever worked for me, I don't like being told what to do. Very much a millennial. So I pushed boundaries very early on in my time with the organizations that I've worked for, and looked at policies and said, why do we do it this way? Do you see how this impacts these employees? Or, hey, this is a good policy, but nobody understands it. Great that you have them sign off on this thing, but who's explaining this to them? Who's sitting down with them to talk about their benefits and talk about their mental health options? Who's doing all of these things? Sometimes I get looked at like, well, no one has time for that. And then I have to throw myself in and say, well, I know it's going to be a lot of work for me, but I have time for that. So let me take that on. And every now and again, I'll get someone that hasn't worked for me before or worked with me before that says, I don't know that you're going to be able to accomplish that, which is another one of my triggers. And I'm like, watch me. Watch me make these employees know that human resources is not here just to make them sign a piece of paper. Developing your style, there's no perfect way. There's no right way. There's no wrong way. You just need to know what you want. What do you want people to remember you as? What do you want people to remember human resources as? I will say that very, very early on, I made a decision on what I didn't want. I didn't know about hippie HR at the time, but I went to an HR conference that I will not name the name of. I think maybe 9 years ago or so in Florida. Anyway, I don't remember really any of the conference, but I do remember one person. I'm not going to say their name, but during their presentation, they're talking about employee matters, and I don't know. I don't even remember what the topic was. But during the presentation, and my ears perked up. They said you do not want employees to be comfortable in your office. And I perked up. I'm like, what? No, I heard that wrong. And they went on and said, don't have candy, don't have food, don't have drinks, don't have a couch, don't have chairs other than yours. You don't want employees to think that this is a place to stay, that this is a place where they can be comfortable, because you are not their friend. And that stuck with me my whole career. I said, okay, well, I don't want to be that. That's fine if that's how you want to start developing your style, is by knowing what you don't want to be. I think all of the things that I learned I don't want to be, especially for companies that I came in and quote unquote fixed human resources and changed the department. I was brought in to do that. I learned about, okay, you're telling me you want me to fix and shift and change. What was so bad about, not the person, about the actual department? What was the problem? What are employees not getting? And I focused on that, because I don't care about that person. They're gone. Let's not talk about them. But what do you want out of this department that you weren't getting? That's what I wanted to do. I wanted to be the fixer and the one that made things better. For me, the idea of not having a seat where an employee can come in and tell me, oh my God, my wife is pregnant and we don't understand the benefits, and that I would tell them, well, you got to call so-and-so on the back of the brochure, and I wouldn't help them. No, no, because I don't want that. I don't want to be treated that way. I had, up until COVID, games and comfortable chairs and lights and stickers and drinks and Keurigs and stuff in my office, because sometimes someone needs a snack. I used to have a little jar in my office that was right next to the door, so it was very easily accessible, where employees could grab change if they wanted something from the vending machine in the break room. I didn't ask them to pay me back. Now, not everybody can do that, and that's fine. But I never asked for them to pay me back. I never asked for anything. I just made sure I always had a couple bucks in that particular thing. And without fail, they would fill it back in as they needed to. Like, it just became like petty cash that they would like take from and then put something back in later when they had cash or quarters or whatever. Like, it just became like an exchange. And with those little moments where someone would come in and like, hey, I'm going to change out this dollar for quarters. They talked to me about I'm not a sports person, but they talked to me about the football game that they went to with their kids, or how excited they are about being a grandparent, or, oh my God, I just got this car and it's so cool, and whatever it is. And then they make fun of me because I had like Yoda on my desk and I'm a big nerd. But I was developing that relationship with that employee, and because of that warmth and I'm going to make sure that they're comfortable in this office and with me in this space, they feel safe. Because of that, I got to hear about what their real needs were. I got to hear about, I just lost my home. I'm homeless with my kids in my car, and I got to help that person. Now, again, I was lucky enough to work in an organization that when they did hear about things like that, they did put their arms around those employees and make sure that they supported them through. But I got to hear things that I could help them with. And even when I was in smaller organizations years and years ago, if I heard about an employee struggling or their family struggling, I connected them with state people, whether it was people that could get them food stamps or benefits or something. I would help them with that. I remember years and years ago when Obamacare came out, I spent a long time helping employees get signed up on that plan, because for them it was free versus coming on the company plan that cost them $80 a week, $80 every couple of weeks. Now, thankfully, I'm not with that organization anymore, but thankfully that organization, towards the end of my time with them, did shift to a more affordable, a truly affordable plan. So employees got to come onto that one. But building your style, building your brand, for me, that's what that was. I want them to be comfortable. I want them to know that they have an ally here. while being respectful and understanding. Like, hey, there are some things, if you share with me, this isn't a place you can vent and just walk away. Like, this is a safe space. I can talk to you about things, but if someone is violating a policy or procedure or whatever it is, I do have to intervene. I will do everything in my power to intervene in a way that doesn't harm you, and I would never allow for retaliation, but understand that. So your words have weight. They have merit in this space. So yeah, I kind of rambled on there, but we'll spend more time talking about this particular topic and subject a little bit later. I have a podcast dedicated to almost everything on this list. But this particular one, I have some experts that I'm going to have come in to talk about branding when it comes to human resources. So yeah. Number 5, learning a little psychology. So what the heck am I talking about now? Again, one of the things that we talked about earlier is learn, read. This is that, but very specific to psychology. I don't need you to become a psychologist. You're not going to become Freud. You don't need to do all of that stuff and buy a couch and get people to lay down on it. None of that. But there are very basic concepts within cognitive psychology, behavioral psychology, industrial and organizational psychology that will help you do your job. They will help you predict how someone's going to respond, how they're going to react. They're going to help you prepare for difficult conversations. It will help you better support your companies and your organizations because it will tell you the basic things that you need to understand to get the best outcome. There are so many podcasts, so many YouTube channels, books, assessments, you name it, that are free online about psychology and the many different facets of psychology. Now, you don't want to go around diagnosing people. You don't want to tell them, hey, you need a therapist or any of that kind of stuff. That is not what we're here for. But you want to understand the why behind the what. This employee responded this way. I don't understand why. How do I avoid this in the future? 9 times out of 10, there's a psychological study that says, hey, these words, when used in these situations, result in a negative response from a person. Psychology to me is a very cool thing. I've built my hippie HR around it. I have built my career around it. I really enjoy learning about basic psychological principles. I've taken psychology classes in the past. I would recommend to all of you to do the same if you can. If you can't afford to go to courses and get a degree or an undergraduate or something like that, or certificate in basic psychology, totally fine. Like I said, 90% of the education that I got in college when it comes to these psychological principles is now available for free online. And there are very, very cool, easy to understand videos on everything on YouTube. And the reason that I say easy to understand, years and years ago, no one cared about why do they respond this way outside of scientific communities. So there's studies and the videos and the things that were available at that time were made for other scientists. And now they're made for the everyday human that just enjoys consuming this information. So it's a lot more accessible now. But yes, become a little psychologist so that you can better understand and help and give the employees what they need, as well as giving yourself what you need, because this will help you with your own mental health in the process. So unpopular opinion time, certifications and degrees. And full disclosure, I do have a master's degree in human resources. I do have all of the major certifications. I have taken the time to keep up with them and all of that. But full disclosure, my master's degree didn't help me. Did not prepare me for the reality of human resources. Neither did the certifications for that matter. The only reason why I pursued my master's degree is for personal gain. I wanted one. I knew I was already working in human resources at the time. I knew it wasn't going to help me professionally in any way. And in fact, the only people that I know that have gotten anything from having a higher level degree in human resources are the ones that are PhD'd and working in like IO Psych or something like that. I think that for entry level people just getting started, it looks good to have these certifications, but it doesn't actually give you any kind of real world anything for the job. I have chosen with the people that I bring onto my teams, I don't require these certifications of them because I genuinely believe that they're a gimmick. Unfortunately, especially if you're going into an HR department of one and it's not an HR person hiring you or vetting you, companies now are looking at these certifications as those little letters behind your name as, well, this person knows what they're doing. This person is educated in human resources because they have this. So they're starting to require this a lot more. In fact, I before I started recording this podcast, I did just a really quick search for HR positions that are all over the place. And every single one of them required some type of certification, but none of them required a degree. So it is a necessary evil, but just be very aware that it does not help you do your job. It doesn't prepare you for your job. But one of those things, everybody said that if you have it, you're better, and that's what companies believe, so we got to get it done. So that's all I'm going to ever say about certifications and degrees. I am a school nerd, so I'll continue to get to work on degrees and all that kind of stuff just because I like it. But I think that I'm not going to pursue any other certifications at this point. So yeah, I will leave that like that. Number 7. So again, unpopular opinion, but it's true. Job titles don't matter in human resources. Human resources is not linear. So what does that mean? An HR director at so-and-so company can be doing the exact same job and making the exact same money as an HR administrator at this company over here, because most companies that create these job titles, they're creating the job title without having an HR professional there to explain it to them. Job titles don't matter. So when you're looking, especially when you're first starting out, when you're looking for jobs in human resources, do not shy away from the ones that say manager. Like, I'm not ready for that. Look at the job description. Apply anyway. If you are currently an HR manager and this one says administrator now, or whatever, the director or generalist, and the job description is of a higher level than you are currently doing, apply. No one cares about job titles in human resources. As long as there is growth within what you are actually doing, the job title doesn't matter. I have been an assistant. I have been an expert. I've been an admin. I've been a manager. I've been a director. I've been a million different job titles within human resources. And as long as I was seeing the progression in the actual job duties, it didn't matter to me if you called me anything. I really don't care. If you speak to anyone that's been doing human resources long enough, they will tell you the exact same thing. HR titles are crazy. HR manager job titles especially are thrown around like you would not believe. It just doesn't matter. Don't worry about the job title. Look at the actual description of the thing that you will be doing, that you will be responsible for. Is it a progression for you or not? If the answer is no, don't do it. On the flip side of that, if the answer is no, but it's significantly more money, you have to make a decision there. For me personally, I have taken some pay cuts from time to time to get myself into where I wanted to be eventually. I know that a few years back, I took a significant pay cut and a significant title change because I wanted to be in that company. I wanted to be there. And I knew where it would get me eventually. And it did. I had to be patient, which is not something that I'm very good at, but it worked. So just, if you like the job description, if you like the company, and please research the company. If you like the progress that it will give you, ignore the job title. I'm telling you, the job titles are just made up and pulled out of a hat. People make them up on the daily. I cannot tell you how many times I've had to have a conversation with managers where like, well, can we just call them this? And I'm screaming at them like, please stop adding job titles. Please stop making things up. Please, you're going to confuse people. Stop it. So if it makes sense for you, if the money is what you need, if the career progression is there, if it's what you feel is right for you, ignore if it says clerk or manager or VP or direct, who cares? Apply. Have some faith in your ability to do even the thing that you're like, that might be too hard for me. You'll learn. Try. Last but not least, understand the past. Now, I know I said earlier, we're not going to talk about the dead and all that kind of stuff, but this is different. I have been brought into companies that said, you know what? Last HR wasn't good, yada, yada, yada. And I would stop them and say, okay, what do you want from the HR team? What do you want from the department? What are the needs of the employees? Before I went out and figured it out on my own, like what are the employees actually saying? I would ask the managers, well, what is it that you want out of this department? Without fail, they would start with, well, the last one, like, don't care about that one. Don't talk to me about the person. Talk to me about what you didn't get. What need was not met? Well, I can't get anybody on the phone. Or no one will explain benefits. Or the door was always closed. Or what? Like those things are what I mean by understanding the past. If you're being brought into an HR team, and you're being brought into an HR team of one or an actual team of multiple people, and you're being brought in as fresh perspective, bringing in a different way of doing things, or just to shake things up, or because they need a new HR person because the last one left. If you understand what the prior life was like, not the person, don't focus on the person, who cares about the person? Understand, okay, the employees are saying no one took the time to explain their benefits. It took days to get phone calls returned. No one responded to emails. The door was always closed to the department. The blah, blah, blah. They weren't available during regular work hours. Whatever the case is. That's the damage that they have had to endure from previous how HR is. They're not saying so-and-so's name. They're going to say, well, that's HR. That's how HR is. One of my favorite things in the world is helping an employee with something, and it's usually something basic, some question about benefits, and we have a 5-minute discussion about whatever their benefits thing, and maybe a couple minutes talking about like the pizza place that they like to go to. And then at the end, without fail, they'll turn around as they're walking out the door and say, you know what? I'm going to tell everybody to come to you. I'm going to tell them that you can help them. Like, this is the first time, like, I've been able to just, like, work with HR. My response is always the same. I'm really sorry that you've had bad experiences in the past. But human resources is for you, and you can tell everybody if they need something, come see me. I'm here. Keep it simple. Understanding that every time you see human resources in a movie, in a TV show, in whatever, it's a horrible depiction of this terrible waste of space that is a pencil pusher, and they don't actually care about employees, or they're a fun sponge and they kill the parties. I love those jokes. I personally love those movies that incorporate an HR person into the problem. But some people take that as, oh, that's how HR is. Your job is to fix that. Your job is to correct that. Part of your brand, your style should be, okay, well, those are the issues that they had in the past. I will fix that. And you have to be patient. The first time I got brought in as a fixer, it took about a year of being overly accessible, of always having my door open, of working extra hours, of changing some policies and procedures, rewriting some things, retrainings, spending time with employees, volunteering to help with programs that had nothing to do with HR, but they needed an extra hand, buying pizza, having the little change thing in the office that invited them in if they needed something from the vending machine, getting new coffee machines, cleaning out the refrigerator, of doing those types of things, just basic groundwork things, before there was a true mentality shift about the department. And I can wholeheartedly say that as long as it took for me to fix perspective perception, it will take minutes to ruin it. So if you are a department of one today, and a year from now, 2 years from now, you're allowed to bring on an assistant, you're allowed to bring on a generalist, whatever the case is, and that person doesn't answer their phone, that person doesn't leave their door open, that person doesn't look up from their computer screen when the employee walks in, that 1 second interaction can damage everything that you just did. So it's important, as you're onboarding people, that you talk to them about the past of the employees and what you've overcome and what your vision is of the future and what the perception is, because perception is reality that the employees have of the department. And maybe it's not a good one and you still have work to do and you want to change it and fix it. That's fine, but acknowledge it and do something about it. It's important, just like yours. Your past is important. Your past experiences with your bosses is important. If you're used to a boss, and I had one like this, if you're used to a boss that maybe didn't call you by your name, called you the girl, I've experienced that, or you picked up their dry cleaning for them, you got their car washed for them, they used you as a personal assistant, and you go from that to an organization that has a true corporate structure that uses you properly. You have to change your mentality too and get used to it. I know that when I first started in HR, I took a lot of abuse, and I took it because I needed the experience. And I took my little notes of, okay, this is not how I want to be when I grow up. But when I got to where I was happiest, when I got to the organization that I really wanted to work at, and the managers treated me as a person, as an equal, as a human, as I did to them, for a little while, it was like, okay, well, when are you going to ask me to buy you coffee? Like, when are you going to, like, I don't trust this. I didn't believe it was real. So in that case, it was opposite, where they needed to understand that I had some war wounds that they needed to help me through. Part of understanding the past is being willing to say, I can't fix what happened then because I wasn't here. But I can help you now and make sure that you get help always. And it's usually little things. It's usually really small things. Answer a question about benefits, help them get a W-2. Their bank statement is weird. Can you help them understand it? It's benefit season and their wife has a question or their husband has a question about such and such on the policy. Answer the question. Those little things, it all adds up to something major, a major shift change for that person. And that person will become an HR advocate for you. That person will go to their department, will go to their team and say, wow, so-and-so just really helped me with this thing. You should go talk to them. I know you had a question too. And they spread that message. And as long as you're consistent, and as long as you're working towards whatever your brand of HR is, and you're consistent with that message and with the actions that you take, the employees will work for you and help you fix that perception, fix that perspective that they have about HR. It's so critically important to understand all of these pieces. So everything tied together, you need to learn and understand, and everything is education in some form or facet. Everything is educating yourself about employees and how they are. Everything is educating yourself about their past, about your past. Everything comes full circle. So be open to maybe they didn't have a good experience and you might get a little blame for that. Don't take it to heart. It's not you. It's not about you. It's that someone in the past maybe did them a little wrong, or didn't take the time to just look up from that screen, or leave the door open, or not do this to them for 20 minutes when they're on a phone call. With that particular thing, just to add my 2 cents, sometimes you are on a call that takes a long time. I've had company presidents and presidents of presidents on the phone with me before, and I've actually told them, hey, I'm so sorry. Can I put you on hold for 2 seconds? I have an employee waiting for me. Let me just tell them when to come back to see me. I'll say 80% of the time that president will understand what I'm doing, and they'll say, oh, nope, go deal with them. Call me back. Because again, I choose to work for companies that employee comes first. So anyway, all of this is important. All of this matters. Understand your employees, understand where they've come from. Ask your new boss, hey, what was the issue? What was the problem that I'm now the fixer? And they'll usually be honest if you are being brought in as the fixer. Maybe during the interview, they won't tell you, hey, so-and-so sucked. I personally hope that they never say that during the interview because I wouldn't want to work for a company that did that. But it's okay during the interview for them to say, hey, there's some work to do on perception with the department. Cool. Thank you for being honest. But understand that work takes time and patience, and you have to be willing and wanting to do that. Because the employees at the end of the day, they deserve it, just like you do. Thank you so much for joining the first HR Psych podcast. A new episode will be released every single week, both on iTunes and YouTube. Everything will be linked down below. If there's a particular topic or subject that you would like to hear about, feel free to reach out to us. All of our contact information is in the description box. And we look forward to seeing you guys soon.